Seen from above, like an unexplored place, the beyond of the beyond, the something behind something that we don't even really know what that something is, a relentless search for control, what drives humanity, specifically the hunters, to go so far for power. The more one has, the more one wants. And this doesn't apply only to hunters, but to all of humanity. And like a huge barrier between what can and what still cannot be done, lies the Dark Continent, where all we know is whoever survives and crosses it will be able to bend the laws of none and discover the whole truth. Want to understand a bit more of what I'm talking about? Then go ahead and subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and turn on the notification bell. Hunter x Hunter is not just any anime or manga. Here, we go beyond what is shown, and part of it fits deeply into the philosophy of human life itself. Human questions that emphasize something hidden that has not yet been explored. And just like there are excavators, archaeologists, and many other explorers in our current world, always in search of uncovering secrets, so is Hunter x Hunter. And among these comings and goings of discoveries across the world, something described with few words brings the nostalgia of the unexplored, and evokes as much mystery, fear, and fascination as, quote, the Dark Continent, end quote, a territory beyond the known limits of the world, shrouded in mists of death, legends, and ancient secrets that challenge even the most experienced hunters. The Dark Continent is not just an unexplored location. It is a constant reminder of humanity's insignificance in the face of the primordial forces of nature and the entities that exist beyond comprehension. And even more enigmatic than the Dark Continent itself is the possibility of what lies beyond it. What lies beyond the abyss that already defies the very logic of life? Is it possible to conceive of something even more hostile, more powerful, more absurd than what has already revealed itself as the peak of existential threat? If in that continent the chimera ants are easily overshadowed in terms of none and evolutionary potential for the end of the world, then the beyond might be the nin. Not even thinking about going there. Jokes aside, it could be there that the true secrets of none and its hypothetical origin exist. To begin to understand this hypothesis, what exists beyond the Dark Continent, it is essential to dive into what is known so far about this forbidden place and the expedition venturing into its shadows. The known world in Hunter x Hunter, where the central events of the story take place, is actually just a gigantic island inside a lake, enclosed by a vast continent around it. Humanity lives in a bubble, protected by a natural and artificial wall, the boundary between the human world and the real world, where the Dark Continent lurks. Those who dared to cross this barrier and returned alive, a minuscule number, it must be said, brought back indescribable horrors. Living plagues, curses, entities that don't belong to any understandable form of biology, and a silent dread that contaminated their souls forever. It's as if it were the doorway into hell itself. Among the most famous names who faced and survived this hell is beyond Nero, son of the legendary Isaac Nero, the former chairman of the Hunter Association. Beyond is a complex character, charismatic, determined, and incredibly dangerous, not only because of his strength, but because of his almost fanatical idealism in breaking the limits of the human world. His goal is not just to step on the Dark Continent, but to colonize it, dominate it, and redefine human history, starting from the unknown. At his side are scientists, hunters, adventurers, military personnel, and members of the royal family of the Kaken Empire, who see in the continent a chance to obtain absolute power, whether through unexplored resources or by taming the forces that exist beyond sanity. This expedition, meticulously planned, takes place under the strict surveillance of the V5, an alliance of the world's 5 greatest nations, which later becomes the V6 with the entry of the Kaken Empire. The political tension is palpable. Beyond's involvement requires the Hunter Association to watch him closely, and it's at this point that the current chairwoman of the association, Cheadle Yorkshire, tries to maintain a fragile balance between following Beyond's plans and ensuring that humanity is not destroyed by his ambition. Paris Dunhill, former vice-chairman of the association, figures as one of the most unpredictable and dangerous elements in this scenario, as he abandoned the organization only to join Beyond's expedition with obscure intentions. The crossing to the Dark Continent requires a colossal vessel, the Black Whale, a giant ship divided into layers, each representing different castes of Kaken society, and also serving as the stage for the brutal and silent power struggle among the kingdom's princes. The succession to the Kaken throne, which happens through a ritual of life and death among the heirs of King Nasabi, adds a dense layer of tragedy and psychological manipulation to what would already be a suicidal mission. These princes, protected by nun beasts summoned involuntarily, make the environment even more volatile, each one fighting not only for the crown, but also for survival in a game where alliances and betrayals constantly shift. While conflicts unfold within the ship, what lies outside remains a mystery. The first clues about what exists in the Dark Continent came from the archives of the previous expedition, which included Isaac Nero and other legendary explorers. The 5 greatest dangers reported in that incursion were classified as the 5 threats. Zobai, Brian, Papu, Hellbell, and AI, entities or plagues that transcend any conventional definition of threat. Brian, for example, is a kind of guardian or sentinel with a plant-like form that massacred hundreds of people. Papu is a parasite that transforms its host into a bottomless pit of hunger, cannibalizing everything around it. Hellbell is a giant serpent that kills and infects simultaneously, transmitting its curse with every attack. AI is a seemingly harmless liquid that induces suicide. Each of these threats represents something that goes beyond the concept of danger as we know it. They are physical manifestations of distorted ideas, such as hunger, pain, madness, and destruction. But if these threats are only the threshold of the Dark Continent, what could lie beyond? The very name, Dark Continent, may be a limited geographic designation, attributed by a civilization that still does not comprehend its true vastness. It's possible that the continent is not a continent in the traditional sense, but rather a mega-ecosystem interconnected with dimensional zones, pockets of reality where time and space behave differently. There are indications that the Dark Continent may expand in multiple directions, perhaps even connecting with other realities or planes of existence, which could explain the origin of some creatures and nun abilities that are so strange and incomprehensible. The presence of the ancients, a possible extinct or hidden civilization that may have colonized or even been born on the Dark Continent, is another fascinating theory. Some scholars within the universe of Hunter x Hunter speculate that these entities may have influenced the development of Nun, or even be the true creators of the technique. In hidden ruins or colossal structures covered by impenetrable jungles, secrets about the origin of life, Nun, and the beasts that now dominate the place may be sealed. Therefore, the beyond of the Dark Continent may be a region where the natural laws no longer operate in the usual way. There may be zones where death does not exist, but rather eternal mutations, places where consciousness dissolves into the environment and the very concept of individuality falls apart. Forests that move like living organisms, manipulating the weather and the emotions of those who approach. Seas that do not reflect the sky, but the thoughts and fears of those who gaze into them. It is possible that entire cities exist made of the bones of creatures extinct for millions of years, preserved by some form of psychic energy still active, in constant conflict with new emerging forces. Moreover, Nun, as a vital force and central technique in the narrative, might only be a basic manifestation of something far greater. In the beyond of the Dark Continent, Nun could evolve, or rather, reveal itself, as part of a much broader spectrum. Techniques like manipulation and materialization may be the first steps of something deeper, something that transcends even the concepts of aura. Imagine a power that permanently turns thought into matter, or abilities that operate simultaneously across multiple dimensions of time. It is possible that beings exist there who do not use Nun, but a force even older, preceding language and logic. Entities that are alive and conscious but have no body and manifest as pure concepts, like fear, curiosity, or love, shaping the world around them based on their own emotions, and destroying anyone who enters their territory without understanding their rules. This beyond might also hold the true secret of the Hunter world, why humanity was enclosed, why the great empires never conquered that land. It is plausible that an ancient force isolated civilization within the lake for protection, not to protect the outside world from humanity, but the opposite. Perhaps there exists a natural, ancient, and immutable order that forbids interference from life forms like ours in certain regions. The border would not be just geographical, but symbolic, a boundary that, once crossed, demands the abandonment of everything that defines humanity. Narratively, the beyond of the Dark Continent represents the final stage of the Hunter world's ascent. If the York-Nu and Chimera Ant arcs represented a dive into the depths of the psychological and biological, the Dark Continent and its beyond symbolize a dive into the metaphysical. The series increasingly distances itself from traditional shonen, and moves closer to existential and philosophical exploration. Through the exploration of the unknown, the breaking of the limits of sanity, and the confrontation with forces that render life insignificant, Hunter x Hunter reinvents itself as a saga about the infinite of knowledge, power, destruction, and creation. The possibility of what lies beyond the Dark Continent is, therefore, the last veil before the total abyss. The challenge of Beyond Nero and his allies, of the hunters in charge of the expedition, of the princes of Kaken and their spiritual beasts, is only the prelude to something even greater. Perhaps, upon reaching the end of this unknown world, the true enigma will reveal that the Dark Continent is not a destination, but rather a portal, a transition point between what we know and what we were never meant to discover, a place where humanity's greatest desires, power, knowledge, transcendence, become eternal curses. And that's where the dark beauty of the universe created by Togashi lies. By showing us that there is always something beyond the horizon, he reminds us that humanity's greatest enemy may not be death or failure, but curiosity itself, the one that drives us forward, even when we've already heard all the warning signs. After all, in the world of Hunter x Hunter, the real danger is not in facing monsters, but in wanting to know what comes after them.